The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions, and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
Good evening, everybody. It's Monday night. That means you're tuned into Armed Radio right here. It is Two Beards Talking. I'm Daniel Sanders.
And I'm DonnieJ.
And if you're listening to us, then may God have mercy on your soul. I'm loving this fall weather out here.
It is wonderful, but it's like a meme on Facebook said, the weather is doing like somebody driving in a car and hitting a speed trap. You went from 95 to 65 in like 10 seconds. And then it went back up to 75, and that's what we've got going on here. We've
exactly.
got nights that are 48 and days that are 76, and I kind of like that myself. It's just I can't really figure out what the hell to wear.
Yeah. I mean,
grab a coat
and an umbrella.
And then have a T-shirt on underneath so you can take the coat off and put the umbrella away when the sun comes out. That's Alabama in the fall.
Yep, exactly. So, as we always do, at the start of every show, we're going to give a big shout-out to the troops out there. You guys are doing a great job. Keep up the good work. Come home safe. Everybody here at home is rooting for you.
And I would like to say a happy 244th birthday to the United States Navy. Yes, anchors away.
Yay.
Hey, you're a Marine. You're part of the Navy, too, okay? Your paycheck said Department of the Navy.
I never saw my paycheck. I had direct deposit.
Okay, we had paychecks back in my day, but I'm showing my age here. Anyway.
Oh, man. So we're going to roll right into it. We're actually continuing from last week. Got a lot to talk about with this whole impeachment fiasco going on.
It's just so much fun.
It really is. It really
it's
is.
It's like each day, it's like a three-ring circus or the Ziegfeld Follies or something. Every day somebody says something stupid and does something stupid, and it's just it's awesome.
Yeah. We're so of course we've been talking about the whistleblower, the Ukraine deal, the impeachment and everything, and I'm just gonna roll right into this. We're gonna have a quick class for those of you who don't know what impeachment is. If you're listening to this and you don't know what impeachment is,
you're about to learn. It's going to be educational. This episode of Two Beards Talk is going to be quite educational, actually. We're talking about Article 2, Section 4 of the Constitution, which gives the requirements for removal from office. And you've got to be, it's high crimes and misdemeanors. A lot of people, high crimes does not mean you smoked a joint and did something naughty. No, what it means is anything that, you want to take this? You got high crimes and misdemeanors over there? Go ahead.
Yeah. So this is the definition of high crimes and misdemeanors. Like you said, it's not a crime you committed while you were high. High crimes and misdemeanors covers allegations of misconduct by officials such as dishonesty, negligence, perjury of oath, abuse of authority, bribery, intimidation, misuse of public funds or assets, failure to supervise, dereliction of duty, unbecoming conduct, refusal to obey a lawful order, chronic intoxication, or tax evasion. Again, they're not talking, when they say chronic intoxication, they're not talking about getting high.
No. And they're not talking about having a couple of cocktails at a state function, in the Oval Office. What they're talking about is, actually, being, a constant drunk. I think, we had a president that did that, Ulysses S. Grant. He was a notorious drunk. In fact, during the Civil War, the temperance movement, a lady come up to President Lincoln and said, "Do you know that General Grant is a drunk? He constantly drinks." And this is right after he had won Vicksburg for the president. And so President Lincoln, without missing a beat, said, "Yes, ma'am, I do. And I wish to find out what he drinks so I can send him a case." So, that's not going to get you removed from office. But lying under oath, that is serious.
Yes.
And obfuscation of a congressional inquiry, that is serious.
Yes.
And I want to point out that what we've got going on here is, we've got a president that surrounds himself with yes men. Anybody that does not agree with him either resigns or gets resigned. I don't know. That's a nice way of saying they get fired, removed from office. And he's got a trove of really good people who are leaving. And a lot of people at the State Department are leaving. Anyone disagrees with him, I mean, it's like narcissism run amok. And I want to go on record as saying I voted for President Trump, okay? When faced with Hillary or President Trump, I wanted to change. I didn't want politics as usual, like many people who did vote for him. Even though she got 3 million more votes than he did, he got the Electoral College, which we're not even get into that fiasco. But I did vote for Trump. Now, that said, I'm getting a little concerned because you can't thumb your nose at Congress. And,
right.
and here's the thing. The same people that were in the trenches and that were trying to bring about who were investigating Benghazi, who were investigating the Fast and the Furious during the Obama administration, those people have a name. And one of the main figures is then Congressman from Kansas, Mike Pompeo, who now is Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Now, back then, he said that failure to turn over documents was unacceptable because then President Obama didn't turn over all the documents relating to Fast and Furious. And, of course, everyone knows there were some documents during the Benghazi fiasco that Hillary did not turn over, right? And he said that's unacceptable. But the same person, Mike Pompeo, Secretary of State, is now telling State Department employees, do not turn over documents, do not testify. And the hypocrisy is just deafening. It's really Lindsey Graham. Well, here's another prime example. He stood up and told Bill Clinton that he could not just ignore or thumb his nose at Congress. But now he's telling President Trump to do the same thing that he told Clinton he couldn't do. What was unacceptable to Lindsey Graham as a congressman is now okay to Senator Lindsey Graham, who is the president's right-hand man, his buddy, his mouthpiece. Again, hypocrisy. Rudy Giuliani, who was a prosecutor, a U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, he back then, during the Clinton administration, he used to run the department, which is right now looking into the investigation of what are their names, Igor and Ivan, I guess.
Yeah. Well,
the two Russians, Rudy's buddies. I mean, he used to investigate the very crimes that now it looks like Crazy Rudy may have committed himself. Mm-hmm. Hypocrisy.
Yeah, and I mean, you can't. I really think you can't be a politician without being a hypocrite.
There's some truth to that. I mean, here's what I think. And in this age of everything being recorded, cameras are everywhere. Everything that you say and do is a matter of public record and recorded for posterity. You think that Senator Graham, that then Congressman, now Secretary of State Pompeo, that Rudy Giuliani, you think they would have, well, maybe not Rudy so much, but you think that
you stupid head.
Rudy's been a little long at the dance, so he's kind of, getting up in that dementia stage. He's kind of forgetting things. But anyway, I digress. You would think that they would remember the things they said when they were on the other side of the aisle. The Republicans that were once investigating the Clintons and Obama, now they're on the defense for President Trump. And what was unacceptable then is just business as usual now.
Right. And I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Of course you are.
I mean, I have not seen any 100% hard, full-blown proof to give credence to the Democrats trying to impeach Trump.
Really?
Again, I've seen evidence, not full 100% blown hard. Yes, he did this. I've seen circumstantial evidence, absolutely.
Okay, well, that's all they had against President Obama, against Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. Maybe not so much against Bill. They pretty much had the goods on Bill.
Oh yeah,
but
and that's what I was getting at.
Slick Willie could get out of anything, but they had just allegations and innuendo, suppositions, and there was never really any hardcore evidence that of any wrongdoing. Still, they launched full scale investigations. But here's the thing. I mean, the president himself, and I know where you're going with this, but here's the thing. in the same sentence that the president of the Ukraine was asking about military aid, about javelins, okay? In the same paragraph, if you look at the transcript, in the same paragraph, the same conversation, he's asking about that. Well, 2 days earlier, he had asked about military aid. Then in that call, he was asking about military aid. And President Trump says, well, would you do something for us? That is quid pro quo, something for something. I'll do something for you, the javelins.
Right.
You do something for me, investigate the Bidens. What more evidence do you need?
Well, I have not seen that personally myself, so I'll have to.
The transcript's been released. I mean, it's online. It's been on all the news. I mean, they show it out there. But the thing is, the Republicans are given a spin. And here I want to point out, I'm more of an independent than I am a Democrat or Republican. Voted for Trump, but the thing is this. Truth is what I want.
Right.
I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. Bill Clinton lied about getting a BJ. Okay, and if you look at Hillary, I can understand why he did what he did. I said that last week, I think. And I'm just being a man and being honest here. Okay, I don't blame you, President Clinton, for doing what you did. All right, was it morally wrong? Yes. Was it illegal? No. But lying
under oath
is illegal.
Yes.
Ken Starr, although I can't stand him, was right. When you're subpoenaed and you testify before a congressional committee, you don't lie because that is a crime. That is perjury under oath.
Yes.
And, the president doesn't want to be called before Congress, doesn't want to testify because if he does, he's got to tell the truth. And if he tells the truth, he's either got to perjure himself and be found out or tell the truth. And, asking a foreign power to get involved in a presidential election or interfere with a presidential election or investigating one of our own, a politician running for office, may not be against the law. But it damn sure isn't it's pretty morally reprehensible, in my opinion. Now if he wanted to ask, if he really thought the Bidens were doing something wrong, why didn't he's got the Justice Department on speed dial. All he's got to do is pick up the phone and say, hey, I think these guys are corrupt, and I would like for you to investigate them. Well, what did they do, Mr. President? Well, they're involved in some kind of gas deal with the Ukraine, and Vice President Biden did it while he was in office.
Right.
I think you need to investigate him. And that would be perfectly legal. That phone call would be perfect.
Right.
But a phone call to a foreign leader, hey, investigate this guy that's running against me in the upcoming election, come on, man.
Well, I mean, yeah, I see what you're saying, but at the same time, yeah, what he allegedly did, I'm going to say allegedly because
of course you are.
Well, from a legal standpoint, he has not been found guilty of anything.
This is true. He is innocent until proven guilty.
So what he allegedly did, what had happened was, what he allegedly did is he went to the Ukrainian president and asked for dirt on Joe Biden and Joe Biden's son based on instances that occurred while Biden was vice president and while Hunter was working for that Ukrainian oil fiasco.
Here's the thing. He had no business asking anything about Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden is a private citizen and can do whatever he damn well pleases. But Vice President Biden, well, he's not in office. Now, he's not in office at all now. He's not a senator. He's not a congressman. He's nothing. He is a presidential candidate.
Right.
So if it was done while he was in office, yes, that could be a problem if there is proof of wrongdoing.
Right.
Again, there's no proof that Vice President Biden did anything wrong. Just like you say, there's no proof against Trump. Well, there's a lot more proof against President Trump than there was against Vice President Biden. But I think that this is just an attempt to obfuscate, attempt to deflect. Hey, don't look at me. Look at him. He did something wrong too. Hey, and this president, this administration is actually very, very good at deflecting.
See, I think this whole fiasco is a deflection from Epstein.
Conspiracy theory much there, buddy? Well, let's go back. Let's go back to 1972, 74. Okay, 72. President Richard Nixon elected for a second term. Then 2 years later, he was under investigation for Watergate, and we all know what happened. I mean, I'm not going to get into that, but I want to point out he fired a special prosecutor. Okay, Archibald Cox fired him. Now, when you fire somebody who is looking at you for some potential crime, what does that say? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
And let's see, how many people have jumped ship? How many people has the president fired when all this started? Okay. I mean, the rats are jumping the sinking ship, and if he doesn't plug the leak in the ship, if he doesn't do something, he could very well find himself being impeached in Congress. Now, that doesn't mean he's removed. That just means an impeachment is like an indictment. In civilian world, if you're accused of a crime, you got to go before a grand jury has to hear the evidence, which is one-sided, which that's the same way it is in Congress. It's one-sided. Only the prosecution gets to state what's going on, and then you're indicted. Well, in the case of the president, you're impeached. Congress has a hearing and says, yes, we believe there's cause to have him stand trial. And once you're impeached, you're not removed from office, but you stand trial in the Senate. And then in this case, the majority in the Senate is with who? Republicans. Right. And so he would probably, more than likely, be found not guilty. That doesn't mean he's not guilty. That just means that he's got more people in the Senate for him than he does against him.
Right. So going back to the high crimes and misdemeanors, let's see here. Where did I find? The word high refers to the offense and not the office. Any elected government official may be impeached. There are some who posit that high refers to the level of office, but that interpretation is false and lowers the standard of similarity, whereby the U.S. Constitution refers to treason and bribery and other crimes that are, quote, high of equivalence to treason and bribery.
I love it every time you say it. I feel like Beavis and Butthead. He said high.
Some also akin misdemeanors as current lower crimes in many jurisdictions. At the founding... And when it says at the founding, it's referring to the founding of
fathers.
Yes. Right. There was no reference to a misdemeanor in criminal law because we based, as you said earlier when we were talking,
on English common law.
Yes.
All of our laws in the United States are based on English common law.
High crimes and misdemeanors provides for other malfeasance at a similar level to treason and bribery. Indeed, the offense may not even be a breach of criminal statute. So, like with Bill Clinton.
Right.
He got a blowjob.
But he didn't commit a crime. But Mr. President, now let me ask you this. You ever been married?
Yes.
Okay, I have too. Now, what married man, and I'm asking this in all honesty, and men out there, just listen, okay? What married man that has gotten a blowjob from someone who is not his wife is going to answer truthfully to that question? Mr. President, did you have sex with that woman? I did not have sex with that woman. He's right, he didn't. Well, in the clinical legal definition of having sex. But did he have sexual relations? Absolutely. But that's not the question that was asked. And Bill Clinton is a lawyer, former Attorney General of Arkansas. Yep. So, I mean, he employed lawyer's tactics. He answered the question that was asked. He accepted the premise of the question. Didn't volunteer any information, and then later on it came out. But that's not what he was asked. So he didn't commit a crime. Right.
However, he did say, if I remember correctly, in an interview, he did say he did not have sexual relations.
Oh, maybe you're right. I thought
I think that's where the perjury came in. I did not have
sex with that woman.
I think he said, I did not have sexual relations with Monica Lewinsky, and I think that's where the perjury came in.
Possibly. But let me go back to what we're dealing with now. And a moment ago I was talking about President Nixon. Lindsey Graham, who has of late become a mouthpiece, a cheerleader, if you will, for President Trump, senator from South Carolina. I've met Senator Graham when he was a congressman, as I met Strom Thurmond, who was a former senator from South Carolina. He was the oldest living senator, passed away back in 1998 or 99, I believe it was. Met both of them. Anyway, Lindsey Graham, when speaking about the Clintons, about Bill Clinton, he was tasked with prosecuting the impeachment case against Bill Clinton. Okay, and this is a quote from him. The day that Richard Nixon failed to answer that subpoena is the day he was subject to impeachment. Those are the president's cheerleader, mouthpiece, Senator Lindsey Graham, speaking about the Clintons. Now, who's refusing to answer a subpoena now? President Donald J. Trump. And he's ordering people in the State Department not to answer the subpoena. He's telling his own people, don't answer the subpoena. Giuliani is telling his people, don't answer the subpoena. That is purposefully obfuscating, purposely evading an inquiry from Congress. And Lindsey Graham back then said Bill Clinton, said that President Nixon, the day that he failed to answer the subpoena, he was subject to impeachment. So why is President Trump above the law? And that's my problem here.
Right.
The man that I voted for thinks he's above the law. We're a nation of laws, not a nation of men. You've heard that before. And it's the truth. And no man, president, vice president, or you and me, are above the law. If you're issued a subpoena to appear before court and you don't show up, you know what happens next? Sheriff's deputies, we have a warrant for your arrest for contempt of court. Now, he's setting a precedent for everybody out here, every civilian, every Joe Blow, you and me. Hey, the president didn't answer subpoena, so I don't have to.
Right.
And you know what? You think it's funny, but here's the thing: we've seen people who the shooter in Texas did it because was one shooter. Now, memory fails me, but he said he did it because he was supporting President Trump, wanting to get rid of the illegal immigrants in this country. He went on a shooting spree. You remember the shooter? Right.
Yeah.
Now, this is an idiot, of course. This is a man that's obviously mentally deranged. And in Texas, he will probably fry. But if we've got a man who's willing to shoot people because President Trump doesn't want illegal immigrants in the country, who's to say we're not going to have people that says, I'm not going to answer the subpoena. I don't have to.
Right.
The president didn't, so why should I?
Yeah. And that's...
We have to hold our elected officials to a higher standard than we have to meet.
Right, absolutely.
So if I have to answer a subpoena, he certainly does.
So now this is where things get murky here. Because, this whole thing started with a whistleblower.
Yes.
And it's saying I actually found an article that just came out within the last few days. I don't know if I sent you this article or not, but I know I've mentioned it to you. The whistleblower on this whole Ukraine thing allegedly has ties to former Vice President Joe Biden while he was in office, even when Joe Biden was doing his thing with Ukraine and his son. So I have an article here from the Washington Examiner. This is where I saw the original article at. Says, when officials revealed last week that the anonymous Ukraine whistleblower had alleged ties to a 2020 Democratic candidate, two important questions were raised. Who was the candidate, and what was the nature of their relationship? We now can answer the first question. The candidate was likely former Vice President Joe Biden. It goes on to say, the connection makes sense when you connect the report to what we already know about the whistleblower. He or she likely had a position in the White House, given the proximity of his allegations. And as the New York Times reported in September, the whistleblower was likely an intelligence officer of some sort, given his familiarity with protocol. He or she might have even been detailed to the National Security Council at some point.
Now, I have to question this. Your source, is that Fox News?
No, this is coming from, like I said, the Washington Examiner.
Washington Examiner. Sorry, I didn't hear that. I was focused on what you were saying. Okay, well, here's the thing. If he's an intelligence official, then yeah, he's probably worked for more than one administration.
Right.
A lot of them are career intelligence officials. I know some with the CIA who've been there for 20 or 30 years, and they're with whatever administration. Supposedly, they're supposed to be bipartisan. Whether you CIA, FBI, Attorney General's office, Department of Justice, they're supposed to be bipartisan and do the job regardless of whether it's a Democrat or Republican that's in office. That said, many of them owe their job to appointments, to working on a detail. Like the vice president has his own security detail. So you don't know whether this is somebody who formerly worked for them and then went to work for the Department of Justice or went to work for one of the intelligence agencies, because they all can move laterally back and forth, up or down in that whole area, that whole department. And without knowing the true identity of what department he works for,
right?
FBI, CIA, whatever. It says intelligence community. Okay,
yes.
We don't know what department he works for or what he knows. But there is a second whistleblower. Now, there's a second one that supposedly is going to pretty much confirm what the first whistleblower says. Now, here's what they should do. This is just a former, law student talking. When you investigate, when you interrogate, say you've got two people that may know something, you put them in separate rooms. You interrogate one, you interrogate the other. You don't let them come together. Right. So now, if these two have talked to one another, which they may have before they come forward, then you've got collusion. But if one of them independently comes up and says something about the same thing, then you've got two different people that don't know each other that are saying the same thing. Then you've got it's not just supposition anymore. You've got some hard evidence here. You've got two credible witnesses independently saying the same thing about a sitting president.
Right. Now, this is a quote from a retired CIA officer. It says, "From everything we know about the whistleblower and his work in the executive branch, then there is absolutely no doubt he would have been working with Biden when he was vice president." The article goes on to say the nature of this relationship is still up in the air, but given the whistleblower's knowledge of Ukraine, as demonstrated in the complaint, it's probable this person accompanied Biden on at least one of his 6 visits to Ukraine, as the Washington Examiner noted. A close past connection to Biden could have been a motivating factor in the whistleblower's decision to come forward. And though this relationship doesn't discredit the content of the whistleblower's complaint, it does reveal that perhaps the whistleblower had a stake in this game after all.
Well, that very well could be. But here's the thing. You've got these people that are coming forward. Now, if you're a president that know that you didn't do anything, I'm going to go out on a limb here. If you know you didn't do anything and you've got all these people that are coming up against you, what do you really have to worry about? I mean, I'm serious. Come forward.
Yeah.
Show your documents. If your documents will prove you out, then why are you hiding? And here's another thing. He's been lashing out at GOP senators that he sees as being disloyal. According to the person familiar with the conversations, Mitch McConnell has been amplifying those attacks on Republicans. And, of course, he's another one of the president's cheerleaders, and, he's supposed to be keeping he's the Senate Majority Leader, so he's supposed to be keeping the senators in line. A couple of them are going, Mr. President, just come forward. Just show your cards, okay, and answer the subpoena, answer the inquiry. Come forward. And he's refusing to do so. Now, when you've got all this evidence that's mounting against you, even if it's alleged evidence,
right,
and you're asked to come forward and you say no, and then you start lashing out at the people. I mean, it's like anybody that doesn't agree with him gets fired or resigns. I mean, this is narcissism. This is an egomaniacal billionaire run amok. That's how I see what's going on right now. And I really wish that the president would just come forward and show what documents he has. And if he didn't do anything wrong, if he really didn't, then the witch hunt will be proven for what it is. Like he says it's a witch hunt. Then that will come out. They tried against the Obamas. They tried against the Clintons. And Clinton was proven to have some wrongdoing there. Against President Obama, Fast and Furious, Benghazi, there was nothing that came of any of those investigations. And he ultimately provided all the documents that was needed. And the Congress said, well, shit, there's nothing there.
Right.
And that's what would happen here if he, in fact, truly, really and truly, did nothing wrong.
Right. Let's see here. It says it could be that the whistleblower's complaint was purely professional and not personal, but if the House is going to base its entire impeachment inquiry on this complaint, it had better be airtight. A blatant conflict of interest could disrupt the entire process, and Democrats owe it to the American people to make sure the person whose testimony they have relied on is free of bias.
Well, see, that is another thing. They can't do that until they actually – and here's what I believe should happen. This can only happen if he comes forward in public.
Right.
Justice Louis Brandeis, of the United States Supreme Court, once said that sunlight is the best antiseptic, and that's true. In all things, political, private, whatever, if you've got something that exonerates you, then let it shine. Let the sunlight in. Let it shine. Transparency. And if it's proven that he has ties to Biden or he has a personal bias, that'll come out.
Right.
And if he doesn't, that'll come out too. And that's the thing. If I just want one thing, what is President Trump afraid of? Why does he keep lashing out at the people that's many of them Republicans? There's Republicans that he's lashing out at because they're going, okay, I'm buying into this a little bit now. I was for the president, standing behind you, but now, Mr. President, what's going on? Well, he doesn't like that. He doesn't like that at all, and he doesn't like anybody that speaks out against him. Mitt Romney, Senator Mitt Romney, former presidential candidate Mitt Romney, he called him a pompous ass this week simply because he said, well, Mr. President, I think maybe you need to show us your cards and you need to come forward and comply with the inquiry. And, it's almost like Rudy calling somebody a stupid head.
Right.
Everybody that says anything against President Trump is a pompous ass. It's fake news.
Maybe it's a New York thing.
You could have something there because New Yorkers are rude, and they're more than likely to tell you to go fuck off anyway. But I don't. I think really what this is Donald Trump has had President Trump has had his entire life. He's done what he wanted to do when he wanted to do it.
Right.
Even right now, it's his entire life is replete with him not paying his bills. There's contractors that have sued him time and again because they didn't get paid what they were supposed to get paid. He just said, I'm not going to pay you. Really famous. Just came out this last week. Frank Sinatra once told President Trump to go fuck himself. He was supposed to open at Trump Plaza. At the Taj Mahal, right? The opening of the casino and the hotel. And it was supposed to be him and Sammy Davis Jr. Now, everybody wants to see old Blue Eyes and Sammy Davis Jr. perform, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, who wouldn't? But when Frank Sinatra said, this is my price tag, Donald Trump said, that's a little too rich. Okay, a billionaire telling Frank Sinatra your requests are a little too rich? Really, Donald? Come on, Mr. President, really? And then he said, well, Sammy Davis is supposed to appear on this ticket too. And he said, no, I didn't pay for I don't want Sammy Davis there. So old Blue Eyes told Mr. President what he could do. And now it's coming out that he just recently had a rally in Minnesota, and he left him with a $600,000, $700,000 bill for security. Because when he shows up, he's got his own security, but these cops have to work overtime.
Right.
And they have to be a lot of them. You got to provide security for the president.
Yeah.
And he's only got I think he's down to about $160 million right now in his war chest for a campaign. And when he does a rally, that's campaigning. He's campaigning right now. So he should be able to pay them and without any problem. When you got $160 million, $760,000 is nothing. And he's done this at about 15 different states, 15 different cities. And this goes back to when he was running in 2016. He did the same thing then.
Right.
It's just, I'm not going to pay you. This is narcissism run amok. This is egotism. I mean, and like I said, I voted for the president, and I really fear that his days are numbered. That's just my personal opinion. But he's defied expectations before. Never underestimate him, because he's the Donald, as they used to call him, and anything could happen. But I think he's going to have some difficulty getting around Congress. The Senate, not so much, but getting around Congress, that's going to be a different thing, because he's, like I said earlier, it's hypocrisy. He is basically doing what all the people that support him told President Obama, President Clinton that they couldn't do. Now he's doing the same thing. So that's my take on that.
Okay, so moving on to the next topic, what is your take on the current situation in Syria right now?
Well, I'm since this broadcast goes out to a lot of our troops, and we're always behind our troops and always pulling for them, I think bringing our guys home, that's a wonderful thing to do. I'm all for that, but not before the job is finished. There's not a soldier, sailor, airman, marine out there that wants to leave in the middle of a fight, that wants to stop before the job's finished. And what we're doing is we're sending a very bad message to our allies. When we say we're going to help you out, we're going to be here for you, well, we're going to be here until we're ready to go, and then we're going to leave your ass hanging high and dry.
Right.
As one person put it, it's like, from here on out, don't jump into a well with the United States holding the rope. And that was a quote, and that's what's going on right now. We're just leaving some people to be slaughtered, and already there's already been a video published on Facebook and social media. Turkish-led forces executing a Kurdish captive. It came out today. The videos were posted showing a bound soldier laying on his side on the side of a road, and they pumped automatic gunfire into him while another one lay by trembling, and people are shouting, "Kill him! Kill him!" And the person who did this, he told one of his comrades to hold the camera and film him. Apparently, he's never heard of a war crimes tribunal or the United Nations war crimes tribunal. But anyway, and this is what's happening now. And we said it wouldn't be long before they started slaughtering the Kurds, and that's what's happening right now. And, here's what kills me. The president just decided to do this on his own, which he can do that, but he didn't even let his commanding generals know. Mark Esper, the Secretary of Defense, Marine Corps General Kenneth F. Mackenzie of CENTCOM, General John F. Campbell is lead man in Syria right now. None of them knew. They found out the same way you and I did on Twitter that he was pulling out, and that's how the Kurds found out. That they're like, wait, what? What do you mean?
Well, before we get into that, of course, this thing with Syria has been going on for a while right now. And I think it was about a week or so ago. I have this report here pulled up from Newsweek, and it says Turkey attacks U.S. Special Forces in Syria, apparently by mistake. And
it was a mistake.
Yeah, that's a pretty big fucking mistake.
Yeah, we don't like it when that happens.
It says a contingent of U.S. Special Forces was caught up in Turkish shelling against U.S.-backed Kurdish positions in northern Syria days after President Trump told his Turkish counterpart, I can't word tonight apparently, told his Turkish counterpart that he would withdraw U.S. troops from certain positions in the area. A senior Pentagon official said shelling by the Turkish forces, such a tongue twister, was so heavy that the U.S. personnel considered firing back in self-defense.
Yeah, and we've got the right to do that. And one thing he did right this week was the president came out and said, if you hit our forces, we're going to shoot back. Mm-hmm. And that's the special forces especially. Pardon the pun on words there, but, you shoot at the Green Berets, you shoot at the Rangers, you shoot at the SEALs. They're apt to shoot back at your ass.
Yeah.
And they're pretty good marksmen.
And they generally don't ask for permission to see. In 2003, the initial invasion in Iraq, you've heard the whole thing about how we were flying planes over Baghdad and Fallujah and everything, and we're dropping flyers into the city that says U.S. forces are rolling through on this date a week from now.
Yes. It's not like we surprised them. We told them, we're coming. Yeah. We're on the way.
And if you're still here by the time we get here, you won't be by the end of the day.
And there was a mass camel exodus leading away from...
But when I got in country in 2006, from 2003 to 2006, things had changed so much at that point. In 2006, we weren't worried about killing everybody. Now we're worried about the hearts and minds. And we had to have positive identification of who was shooting at us. And then we had to radio in and request permission to return fire.
Rules of engagement.
Yes.
Bullshit rules of engagement.
Yes. ROEs had changed that much in that 3-year period in the middle of a war that we had to be shot at, even if we knew we were about to be shot at. We had to wait until we were under fire, request permission to return fire, and hope to God somebody said yes.
Well, that changed somewhat because the rules of engagement changed. It's like if you get shot at, you shoot back.
Yeah.
And the Turkish forces would do well to remember, like I said earlier, that you're shelling special forces. That's a great way to wake up the next morning dead.
Yeah.
But back to what I was saying is it's really disturbing that the people in his own administration, the president's own administration, don't know what he's doing, and that goes back to what I said: narcissistic loose cannon. You let CENTCOM, the commanding general of the CENTCOM, know. You let your man on the ground know. If you remember back during the first Gulf War, when Schwarzkopf was on ground commander, Colin Powell was chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and they had a little disagreement between each other one time, but Colin Powell went to bat for Schwarzkopf and told President Bush, look, he's your man on the ground. I'm not going to second guess him. Let him do his job. And, well, we all know how that one turned out. They surrendered in about 100 hours. But today we've got, it's not quite that simple. And I think when you take your commanding generals on the ground and the commanding general of CENTCOM, when you take them out of the loop, hell, even your Secretary of Defense, then we've got a serious problem, because it becomes a question of what the hell is he going to do next? And if you're in uniform right now, and with all due respect, because I've been there, you've been there, you can't come out and speak out against your commander in chief. You just don't do that.
Right.
That's a nice way to find yourself, being court-martialed.
Yeah.
You don't do that, and we understand that. So, speaking for the forces, Mr. President, what the hell are you thinking? You have to get advice and consent on some things from the Senate and from Congress, but apparently, he's got the War Powers Act, and he can do pretty much what he wants to do. That doesn't necessarily, just because you can do something, doesn't mean that you should.
Right.
And I would say you need to consult with the people over there. And former SecDef Mattis came out against his withdrawal from Syria, because he essentially said the same thing everyone else is saying. When you do this, you're letting, maybe not lambs, but you're letting those people go to the slaughter.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we're seeing happening now.
Yeah. And, I've always, ever since I served in the military, I have always said, I feel like one of the prerequisites to be voted in as president is you should have served in some way, shape, form, or fashion. You should have served in the military, because, again, as president, you hold the title of commander-in-chief.
You need to know what the hell you're commanding.
Yes, exactly.
And some of our most successful presidents have been former generals, former military officers.
Yeah.
And
Ronald Reagan, John F. Kennedy.
George Bush was a pilot in World War II.
Yes.
Jimmy Carter, he was a nuclear officer on a nuclear submarine. Eisenhower, Supreme Commander, Allied Expeditionary Forces in Europe during World War II, and they knew exactly what they were doing.
Yeah.
And here we've got a president that's never served a day in uniform. The least that he could do is listen to the advice of the people he's got on the ground in country.
Right.
And he said many things which offended me as a former serviceman. He said that he felt like he deserved a Purple Heart. He also felt like he deserved a Medal of Honor, and he said he felt like he would have been a great general. And with all respect to the president, I think all of those three things are bullshit. He went to a military academy. He got 5 deferments during Vietnam to keep from serving in Vietnam, and now he doesn't even want to listen to the advice of his commanding generals. I've got some serious problems with that.
Yeah.
And this is a man I voted for. I'll reiterate, I've got some problems, Mr. President. So
yeah.
Listen to the good advice of these people, because they're there. They know what's going on. And as I said earlier, it sends a very bad message to the U.S. allies that you can't depend on us. And I don't mean the soldiers, which are the most dependable. The soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, they are the creme de la creme of our country. They are the best fighting forces in the world. They have honor. They have courage. And they do the job when they salute, say aye, aye, sir, yes, sir, and they do the job that they're told to do. But the leaders that command them at the Pentagon and civilian leaders, mainly is what I'm speaking about. Many of them never served in uniform. Mm-hmm. And as you said, I think it should be a prerequisite that if you're going to command U.S. forces, you should have some military experience. I don't care if you just did 4 and got out. Okay, yeah. You don't have to have been a career man. It would help, but and when you've got someone like Mad Dog Mattis who's saying, "Don't do this, don't do this," well, I'm going to do it anyway because I'm president. And that's one of the reasons why he left.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall during one of those meetings between Trump and Mattis, where Mattis is saying, "Mr. President, I would really advise against this." Well, I'm the president, and I'm going to do this anyways. Like, I'm really surprised Mattis did not knife hand the shit out of him.
Well, you can just imagine the veins popping out on his neck, his face turning red, and he's wanting to just, because he's not used to idiots telling him, "Here's what I'm going to do," because he was the general. Yeah. And here he's got, he's going, okay, gritting his teeth and veins popping out on his neck. And I can just, you're absolutely right. He probably left and the final straw was what's going on now. And he just, I can't do this anymore. I got to go.
Yeah. And, we're talking about, we're basically talking about the pattern of our generation.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yes, and he just recently come out with a book, and it was funny. He had 30 books that he recommended that everyone should read. It's especially for people who are in the military, but it was basically just for leaders in general. And there's about 10 of the 30 books I've already read, but I was real impressed and not surprised, but impressed that about 8 of the books on his list are required reading at West Point, Annapolis, and United States Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs.
Right.
Required reading for freshmen and upperclassmen.
Yeah.
And his list of the books, it's just basically it's not just military strategy, but just strategy in life, and just really great reading. And this is a man who is very wise, a great general, very respected, decorated, and the president just decided, I'm not going to listen to you. You don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Feared.
Oh, well, he's a Marine Corps general. Damn straight he's feared.
Not even so much that he's a Marine Corps general, just some of the shit that he said.
Well, you look at his face, the bag's under his eyes. I mean, this is a man who's seen a lot of late nights and early mornings, and I'm not talking about partying either. I'm talking about shelling the shit out of some people probably, and staying up late, directing forces, and just the weight of the world on his shoulders at one point in time. And then he gets this job as Secretary of Defense, and you've got some idiot that doesn't want to listen to you.
Like I said, we're talking about the pattern of our generation. And, of course, what I mean by that is, General George S. Patton was quoted as saying, the point of war is not to die for your country, but to make the other poor, dumb bastard die for his.
Yes, exactly.
And, from Patton to Mattis, we never really had a military leader who had the balls to just come out and say something like that.
Well, Schwarzkopf was
Schwarzkopf, yeah,
he was pretty outspoken. Yeah. He got into a pissing contest with Colin Powell during the first Gulf War, and at one point, it's in his book, My American Journey by General Colin Powell, which I highly recommend you read. I read it as a sophomore in college back in like '96, but it's a great book, and in it he talks about how he got into it with Schwarzkopf when he was in country in Iraq, Kuwait rather, and he was recommending a certain action, and he got into an argument with Colin Powell over whether or not to do it, and Colin Powell at one point said, "Are you doing this in front of your subordinates? Is everybody else hearing this?" He's like, "No, Mr. Chairman, no one is hearing. It's just you and I." And he got into it with him, and of course he said yes sir, and saluted and did what he had to do. But then in the conversation with President Bush, Secretary Chairman Powell said, "Mr. President, we need to listen to the commander on the ground. He knows what he's doing." And this is an instance of a president that isn't listening to anybody. let alone his commanding general. I mean, we're looking at Kenneth Mackenzie. He's got 4 stars. Marine Corps general with 4 stars. John F. Campbell at CENTCOM, 4-star general. And these people are going, wait a minute. Wait, what? You did what? You pulled our forces out. Are we still in NATO? I mean, what are we going to pull out of next? And again, I'm starting to say with chagrin, I voted for the president, and now I'm beginning to wonder just what the hell he's doing.
Right.
And I know you don't want to bash him, and I get that. I get that. Because, our political – we agree to disagree on some things, if you haven't figured that out by our broadcasting. But I know you're very pro-Trump, and I still would like him to be the president that I want him to be.
Right.
But I don't see that happening.
It's not so much that I'm really pro-Trump. Again, like I said last week, I respect the office.
I respect the office, if not the person holding it.
Yes, I don't, and I've always had that kind of mentality, even when I was in the military. Dealing with higher level enlisted and with officers, I may not respect you as an individual,
but you're a top sergeant. I respect that. You're a major. You're a colonel. You're a full-blown colonel. I damn sure respect that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I might tell you to fuck off, but I'm going to do it with respect.
With all due respect, sir, fuck yourself.
Yeah,
I never said that. I never had the balls to say that to a captain on a Navy ship or an admiral. It's you just there's some things that when you're an E4 you just don't do. So
yeah, and. I don't even really remember exactly how that came about. I think it came when I PCS'd from Lejeune to Paris Island, because when I was at Lejeune, when I got back from my second deployment, I was working in the S3 at the time, and our battalion ops chief, just before I PCS'd, he got our entire platoon together, and we just had a chill moment at his house. So, we were drinking beer, had a fire going, just relaxing, and he told us in formation before we even left work that day, said, "Here, I'm Master Sergeant. At my house, I'm James."
Yeah.
And I respected the man so much.
You couldn't say James. Yes.
So I relaxed myself to the point that I called him Top. I never at work called him Top. I always thought that was kind of a disrespectful thing to, especially during working hours.
I never experienced that in the military, but as someone who studied law, I once worked for a judge who after hours he asked me to join him for some brandy, and we were talking. He's like, we're just alone. You can just call me William or call me Bill. I'm like, absolutely, Your Honor. It's like, no, really, Donnie, you can call me by my first name. I will do that, Your Honor. I just couldn't bring myself to say, yes, Bill, yes, William. I couldn't do that because the respect that I had for this judge was just so overwhelming. And it's that way with your top sergeants, that way with with an officer. Well, maybe more with your top sergeant or your chief petty officer than an officer. Yeah, I said that. But anyway, there's an overwhelming respect there, and you just can't bring yourself to do that.
Right.
But we're digressing here. But it kind of goes back to the core of what you're talking about. If our president had the respect for his generals, for his commanders in the military, that they have to have for him, if that respect was both ways, then I think our troops would feel a whole lot better. I know damn well our commanders would feel a whole lot better, and I think things would go much better. If he'd had the respect of saying, well, General Mackenzie, General Campbell, what do you guys think? Secretary Mattis, what do you think we should do? What is your – rather than just going ahead and unilaterally doing whatever the hell he wants to.
Yeah.
And there's that lack of respect from the top down that's causing a root problem with a lot of the military right now. And as I said earlier, a lot of the rats are jumping ship in his administration. We've had resignations all week long from the State Department. And you're going to see in the coming days, mark my words, you're going to see many more resignations. And here's the thing. When they resign from the State Department or they resign from say, the Pentagon, they resign from the military, they're private citizens.
Right.
And they no longer are under the command of the president, so he can't tell them not to answer subpoena. And they no longer have the privilege of they don't have any executive privilege or any coverage in that arena. They're just private citizens, and when Congress calls, they got to answer.
Yep. So we are running short on time now. So again, I'm going to take the opportunity, as I do every time, to plug our Facebook page, Two Beards Talking.
Yep.
Like us, follow
a beard
us.
and a goatee, actually.
Yeah. You got to grow that beard in.
I'll work on that.
You got to grow the beard in.
I've never had the full fuzzy. I like the goatee.
You got to have the warm. It's the warm and fuzzy. It's the warm and fuzzy. But yeah, like us, follow us, interact with us. If you like us, if you hate us, I don't care. I just want some interaction. Talk to us.
And you can also listen to me if you want to. Weekends on Saturdays from noon until 6 and Sundays from 6 until midnight. You can download us at WQSB.com, Alabama's Country Giant, if you like country music. We've got a lot of great stuff playing, and also take your requests. You can listen. You can give a call in, and I'll give a shout-out to you wherever you are.
Absolutely, yes. So,
and again, happy 244th birthday to the United States Navy.
Yay.
Bite me, jarhead.
Oh, man. So, again, big shout out to all the troops out there deployed wherever you are.
On ships, wherever you're sailing.
We appreciate everything you're doing for us. Keep up the good work. Come home safe. We appreciate you tuning in. I'm Daniel Sanders.
I'm DonnieJ.
Thanks for listening, guys.